Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to this BAMT, BAAT and BADth joint event exploring the AHPs Deliver, the new AHP strategy. It's fantastic to see so many people here with us today. My name's John Cousins-Booth. I'm the Director of Education and Professional Affairs for the British Association for Music Therapy. We're delighted that Venus Madden, the clinical fellow for the Office of the Chief Health Professions Officer, is here tonight and is going to talk us through the strategy and really help us think about how we can get involved as art, music and drama therapists. So just a small bit of housekeeping. You'll see that it is being recorded tonight. Also, captions are enabled if you wish to use them. And you'll note that if you would like to speak, please either pop something in your chat or raise your hand, and then we can, I'll unmute you and we can talk. There'll be plenty of time to feedback and get involved. We want this to be as interactive as possible. You will need either your phones or another device to interact through the Mentimeter, but Venus will talk us through that. I'm going to hand over to Venus now. Thank you ever so much, Venus.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, John. And thank you very much for having me this evening as well. As John put it quite rightly, my name is Venus Madden, and I am the current clinical fellow to Chief Allied Health Profession Officer of NHS England, who is Susan Rastrick. So hopefully many of you will know already. So I'm actually really pleased to be able to join this event. I did have a bit of a slightly mini panic attack, John, when you actually mentioned about being recorded and then put it on YouTube, because technically anyone can actually watch it these days. So here you go. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna share my screen, and hopefully my technology will
Venus, you have just muted yourself. Sorry.
Hey, do you know what? When I actually try to share the screen, I automatically mute myself. Is that a sign, everyone? Is this a sign? Right, let me try again. Let me try again. Right, so right, can people see the screen? And can people still hear me?
That's great for me, Venus.
Right, okay. So what I'm actually doing is I'm just gonna do it like this. So just to say, John, I actually can't see anyone or any comment, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna whiz through the whole sort of like slides and then actually get colleagues to join in, but do feel free to actually interrupt me anytime as well. So if you've got a mobile handy, or if you don't mind having open another browser, normally it works better if you've got Microsoft Edge or Google Chrome. Is actually better. So if you go to www.menti.com, so not Mentimeter, but actually just menti.com, and then if you enter the code 38255519, so John, if you don't mind putting the code in the and actually the link as well, because sometimes people go into the Mentimeter. If you can actually do that, put it in the chat box in case if people come in late, then do feel free to actually join us anytime. I only got a couple of like interactive questions to get people to join in, so hopefully it won't be too much of a chore really. And as John said right at the beginning, is we try to actually make it quite interactive tonight. So so hopefully it will be fine. So as I said, go to link, enter the code. Hopefully you will get in there, and then I will yeah, guide you through really. So again, as I said, I introduced myself already, and just want to double check you are here for our very lovely evening. Have art, drama, music therapists, and I think traditionally we tend to actually call you guys creative therapists. So no pressure there. We would actually like to see some creativity, thinking outside the box this evening. Obviously, this is actually one of the things that we are here tonight. We are here for. So just for those who don't know, or actually if you've already have heard of these quite a few times, I just want to actually talk a little bit about the whole strategy again, and actually what are our focus. we officially launched the strategy in June last year, 2022. It's actually felt like quite some time ago. On the left-hand side is actually, I think it's around 30 pages of the whole document. And on the right-hand side, we actually got the easy read version. The easy read version, I probably would prefer to call it more like easier to read. And it was actually done by some of our physio students who actually joined us on a leadership placement last year. And they've done a fantastic job working with different people with lived experience. So we actually put this together, and I think at the time it was a fantastic achievement because it took over 21,000 comments and feedbacks that we have actually got, and it was led by my predecessor, Dr. Janet St. John Matthews. And basically, we did the crowdsourcing, and that was actually the methodology that actually Suzanne asked us to suggested us to actually do. It was very successful, and we have got a lot of comments and feedback from not just AHP colleagues in England, but also in the other 3 nations, as well as people with lived experience, carers and patients, and actually people with different protective characteristics as well. So it was a fantastic time that we actually put this together. Now, obviously, this is the question that I will always ask people, is have you read the AHP strategy? Now, obviously, just people who actually haven't done this before, this is completely anonymous. So you do not have to worry that if you actually haven't read it at all. And obviously, just want to say as well, just because you have read more than once, you're not going to get a prize either, because as I say, it's anonymous. So feel free to actually put something down here. And also just to say as well is that this strategy we put down that is just for AHPs, allied health professions in England. But what we have actually realized, because as you probably know, Suzanne works very closely with the other couple, which we call them Chief Allied Health Professions Officers in the other 3 nations. We've worked very closely together. And what you will notice as well is that the ambitions and the commitments that we actually mentioned, they are very, very similar in other nations, but obviously the terminologies could be slightly different. So yeah, this is actually really good. The reason why I say it's really good is because not many people have read it, and not many people actually know it. So you probably it will be more interesting for you to actually hear what I'm gonna share with you as well. Okay, we got 19 people engaged. Now, obviously, I know this is an evening, but it will be very important for you to actually try to put your sort of like score in there, because I'll try to wait around sort of like 2/3 of you who've done the scoring, and then we'll move on. Brilliant. Okay, so we are sort of like towards the not knowing the strategy that much, so that's really good. We will be able to have some good conversations this evening. So John, have we reached the 2/3, the magical numbers yet, or are we still waiting for a few more colleagues to join in?
I think we're just about 2/3, but it'd be good if as many people as possible can join in. Especially if you've not given Menti a go before, please try. It's really user friendly, and it's a fantastic way to get everybody interacting, and yeah, and being able to offer an opinion kind of anonymously as well.
And what we will do as well is right after this event, apart from, as John said earlier, these recordings will be uploaded on YouTube. All this information, the slides and all the discussions that we're gonna have, we will actually share with you all via like a PDF format as well. So you'll be able to actually see what we've discussed this evening. So all this information that you entered, you put in will be very helpful. Right, okay, so we got around 25, so hopefully you will continue to sort of like do it, but I actually gonna move to the next slide now. So this little circle here, I probably will say that you will be seeing it quite a lot. I would like to think that you will see it quite a lot in the next 5 years. So this is a plan. It's not a workforce plan, but it is a plan for our workforce, everyone, every member in the AHP community. And it got a lifespan of 5 years. And this is, as I said, you will see it quite a lot. But essentially, what we've actually done is we talk a little bit about different overarching approach that we have used. And then we got, as you can see, the sort of like red color or mulberry colors, something like that. So that is our enhanced foundations, which I actually will talk to you a little bit about. But I guess the key things that I would really appreciate if you can actually remember is that we have adopted the co-production and anti-racism overarching approach principles to actually drive this strategy. When Janice actually led the work and wrote it together, we have actually got different colleagues joining us doing the work, and we were very determined to ensure that this is also reflects and actually mirror what we should be doing, the co-production, co-designed bit as well. And then I think it's also very important to actually put down the anti-racism bit as well, because this is also what from that 21,000 feedback comments that I actually mentioned, people were very keen for us to actually to look at how we actually tackle racism together. So obviously you have colleagues who actually ask about how come we are not using the word inclusivity, but actually anti-racism. Basically inclusivity is actually, you will see that it's filtered through our whole strategy, but anti-racism is actually what we've chosen that we really want to focus on and actually talk a little bit more as well. So this is the circle that, as I said, you'll be seeing it quite a lot in the next few years. So I just gonna talk a little bit about the 4 enhanced foundations, and we will probably spend more time on the focus areas really. So these 4 enhanced foundations is actually from the first AHP strategy, which hopefully many of you have heard is called AHPs Interaction. So that was our first effort strategy that used the same methodology, crowdsource, and actually got colleagues to think a little bit about our work and our impact. Whereas now we are building on top of that foundations that we already built. So which hopefully this doesn't come as a surprise to you, but we focus a lot about how we can actually champion diverse and inclusive leadership. And when we actually talk about that, it's not just about leadership as in different banding or hierarchical senior position. We are actually talking about leadership in everyone's own right. How can we facilitate that? And actually, how can we support colleagues to actually make them decisions for their work, for themselves, for their development, actually for their development, and as well as for the interventions. And then we move on to the AHPs in the right place at the right time with the right skills. So this is probably the phrase that you have actually heard quite a lot. And especially in the last few months with the winter pressure as well, we want to ensure that we develop our colleagues to actually be well equipped and have the right resources to actually do and deliver what they are required to do. And then we move on to actually talk about the AHPs commit to research, innovation, and evaluation. And I think probably some of you, if you are in the Twitter community quite a lot, you will probably see quite a lot of events have been happening. But I think one of the things that really strike me, and the feedback from all the events that I've been doing as well, is the fact that we want to change people's mindset. Research is not. It's not just about peer review research. We're actually talking about any type of service evaluations. We're talking about audit. We are talking about loads of things that it doesn't really matter what role or what settings you are in. You will be able to encourage and actually be supported to do that. So that is something that we are really focusing on as well. And as you can see, the sort of like the key publication that actually guide us and give us that directions of travel is on the right bottom here, the AHP Allied Health Professions Research and Innovation Strategy for England. In fact, I think they're actually just about to celebrate their first year anniversary because it was launched last year in January. So watch this space. I think they actually gonna have some events coming up as well. And finally, the last foundation is I think this is something that is an area that we probably need to work on a little bit more. We only just started, even though the digital framework for allied health professions, it was actually published in 2018, 2019, I think it's 2019 actually. And in there, it actually supported us to think a little bit about the level of digital maturity that we are at. And that's various sort of like questions that actually help us to evaluate and actually think about what our services or actually our providers, what do we need to do to support our colleagues to actually be more confident about data and about innovations. And obviously, because of the pandemic in the last few years, we have actually seen a bit of a kind of like the speed has actually move on quite fast because of that. So these are all the enhanced foundations. So hopefully you have seen some of these documentations already. Right, so just moving on, as I said, actually, I will be talking a little bit more about our focus areas, which I think is very important. And those the first focus areas that we actually talk about is people first. Now, in different nations, and actually, I think in Scotland, they also have a slightly different term, but essentially what it means is people refer to the people, the individuals that we work with. So they are actually the patients, or in some of the services, we actually call them service users. And also that include carers as well. And I think this is something that is very important for us to actually to acknowledge and actually remember, because when we actually work with individuals, we actually don't just work with them, but it's also the people who are meaningful to them as well. And on the left-hand side, you could actually see there's a universal personalized care document that was actually very nicely well written. We talk quite a lot about personalized care. On the right-hand side, there's another document called Moving Forward with the NHS long-term plan, No One Left Behind. Now, that is a document that might not be as probably like as known to many of us. You can actually just Google it, Working with Everyone, and you'll be able to find out and actually read it. So Working with Everyone is charity, is an organization that actually work with people from the marginalized communities. So I'm talking about people who are homeless people, or people who are actually from the traveling communities, who have probably drugs and alcohol problems, who actually struggle to access a lot of the services, our healthcare services. So they have actually, NHS England has commissioned this report and actually get them to write a little bit about what does it feel like, and actually what does it mean when we struggle to access services. So they are actually the two very key documents that I would actually urge you to have a read. And with the universal personalized care as well, it's actually, and I think there's a webpage, if you actually look, Personalized Care Institute, there's lots of free trainings that you can actually do to support you if this is an area that you want to develop a bit more. But what I would definitely say is really about what matters to you. That's the question that you can actually ask and actually think a little bit about for your patients, for your carers, and actually for your colleagues as well, because essentially how our colleagues feel really affect what we think and actually how we work as well. So moving to the next one, this is the optimizing care. Maybe some of you have seen this already, but essentially I just want to sort of like whiz through very quickly, is the fact that how can we ensure what are we trying to it's about our ambitions and actually commitment to develop and actually support our colleagues to have that psychological safety, psychological, physical, and digital safety, so that we can actually do the work better. But there's a lot of work is already underway. So we are talking about job planning, we're talking about quality dashboard, we are talking about how can we ensure that when staff are being redeployed, how can we make sure that they're actually redeployed and deployed effectively and maximizing using their skills. So that is something that we are also focusing on. And actually we already have quite a lot of workshops done in around October, November time. And if you want to find out more, that's all in the Future NHS as well. So just moving on, the next one is actually about social justice, addressing health and care inequalities. And I'm very sure that many of you have heard or come across the core 20+5. And basically, we actually think that it's very important for us to actually drive this forward, not just to be part of, but actually is to drive this forward. Now, the research actually have been done probably quite some time ago now, is that on average, AHP, allied health professions, we have around 4 million contacts with patients per week. And that was the research being done. I think the data was collected a few years ago. So I'm sure that now it will be a lot more. But if you actually think about how we can actually think about our approach, how we can actually do things differently, we will be able to tackle this together very, very nicely. And obviously, we are only, I'm going to call us one professional group, because we are actually allied health professions, one umbrella. But I think we need to work collectively in order to drive this forward. And I mean, we can definitely do that as well. So I would urge you to actually have a read of the documents in here as well. And the next focus areas is actually about environmental sustainability, greener AHP. So I think some of you probably have maybe have visited the greener AHP on our NHS England webpage already, because in there we got a lot of information. We also got a lot of case studies that actually people can look into as well. But essentially what we are doing is actually as part of the delivering a net zero NHS service. This is actually what we are trying to do. And of course, we also know as well, this is all about the population health. This is all about how we can actually prevent. It's really about the prevention and actually empowering our public to think a little bit about what sort of things they could do in order to help a sort of like healthier, better environment as well. And now, while you might think, well, actually, I don't want to tell you too much, but this is something that we will discuss in our breakout rooms later. But what I want to actually encourage you to think is actually never ever think that, oh, I am just an art therapist, I am just a drama therapist. What can I do to actually change? Actually, you'll be very surprised that you have a lot of control, and you actually have a lot of and abilities to actually do this to change the dial, to move the dial, I will say. So that's our focus for. Moving on to the next one is the last one is strengthening and promoting the AHP community. So essentially, what we acknowledge as well is the fact that we need to actually promote ourselves a bit more, because not many people in the public, in the general public, actually know who we are and actually what we do. Now, for those who are very active on Twitter, you will know that we already got Twitter handle called We AHPs, and they got around 28.1k followers. So they are actually the key people that we've been using. That's the platform that we've been using to actually engage with the public and with lots of people. But what I think we need to remember is this strategy was written not just for registered colleagues, but also for unregistered, pre-registered colleagues. So we are talking about the students, we are talking about our apprentices, our return to practice. And we are now living in such a digitally interconnected world that actually we can't help, but we actually have to think a little bit about how we can technologically disruptively challenge and change how we share information, how we actually promote ourselves. So last year, during the National AHP address on the AHP's Day, Suzanne has actually announced that we have got a new social media account called AHPs Deliver on Instagram and TikTok. We actually got more followers now, just to let you know. But if you are on Instagram or TikTok, please do feel free to actually join us, because what we are actually doing is we are actually putting quite a lot of videos together. And if you would like to join forces and actually create videos, or if you already got videos that you would like to repurpose, please feel free to share with us. But essentially, what we are trying to do is we are not just trying to connect people. We are not just trying to educate the members within the AHP communities, but we actually want to educate the public as well. But by doing that, we are also hoping that we'll be able to stimulate more interest from the younger generations, because as we all know, research have already shown that I think children and young people as young as year 4, they start thinking about their career. So we actually want them to start thinking about their career in the AHP umbrella a little bit sooner. So that's why we actually started this. So go and have a look. That's we already got quite a few videos and posts on there already. So just moving on very quickly, hopefully I'm still on within the time. So basically we have, after we launched the strategy in June last year, we have actually launched the implementation framework in July, towards the end of September, actually September. And the reason why we actually launched that is because we know that in order to ensure that we can make the strategy live, we want to support our colleagues to actually think a little bit about what does it mean, and actually how can we actually change what we are doing now. So we have launched this, and as you can see, we actually got we sort of like chopped this framework into 4 different operating levels. So depending on what operating level that actually applies to you more, the questions in that grid will be slightly different. So let me actually just show you the grid that I referred to. So I'm just showing you the one that actually for the individual. And so as you can see, what we actually have done is that on the left-hand side, we have got the 4 enhanced foundations that I actually just shared with you very briefly. And on the top row, we actually got the 5 focus areas of the strategy. So what we've actually done is that we have, after a lot of work behind working with different regional AHP leads and loads of actually different colleagues from different professional groups and actually professional bodies as well, is that we come up with these questions, which are sort of like taking an appreciative inquiry approach. And what we are actually encouraging people to do is to use these questions to actually ask themselves, if you're individual operating level, or if you're actually looking from a region or system, is to actually think about what sort of things that are already in train, what sort of things you're doing very nicely, and you would like to champion and actually share with the people within your system or even just within your organization. Or is there any things that actually you need to do a bit more? And if you do want to do a little bit more, where are the training opportunities? Where are the developmental? And actually, what resources do we have? So, and as you could actually see as well with our grid, we have actually got quite a lot of hyperlink to actually support colleagues to go into, look into what is already out there, what sort of things are working already. So this is actually what we've done. I will be, when I actually send this PDF to share with you, you actually got the hyperlink of the implementation framework, so you'll be able to do it. But actually, we're going to use the questions from this to actually share with to do our breakout rooms later as well. So hopefully it will actually make it more alive for you all. But just to actually, before I move on to the next slide, we have already got a lot of feedback. So hopefully, I think that's something that actually you guys will be able to go away and try to use as well. We have got a lot of feedback from colleagues to actually say that some of them, the questions that they use, they are actually turning it into to become PDR, their personal development reviews objective, their developmental objective. What they have some of actually the chief AHPs in the organization, or actually if you're service lead, is they actually look at which questions, because we got 5 years, okay? So they actually look at which questions align more with the quality priorities in their organization. And then they actually lift it and encourage their colleagues to actually put plans together and use it, as I said, as an objective to make it more measurable as well. So that's something that actually you might would like to consider. But as I said, we have received a lot of really good feedback already to actually say that it works. So just moving on, I actually just gonna stop for 2 seconds now, and I was also stop sharing for a bit as well. I've been talking for a bit. So basically, I think I have stopped sharing now. So basically, that is actually just a very quick whiz through of our the strategy. And what we will be doing is actually we will be having a bit of a discussions in our breakout rooms, and I'm actually very pleased to let you know that we have got different colleagues joining us as well. I'm just wondering, has anyone got any questions or comments to make urgent one to actually make or share before we move into the breakout rooms? Yeah, so I just saw a colleague putting down, Jed, you were saying about good to see an easy read version. Brilliant, that's good. Brilliant. Okay, well, if we actually don't have any comments, John, is it okay if we actually go to start prepping to go to the breakout rooms?
Yes, we can do that. Do you want to talk us through what is going to happen in each of the breakout rooms?
Indeed, right. So I think I might have to get you guys to actually do a bit of work. So basically, I have just put in a Jamboard link into the chat function. So if you guys can all copy and paste this Jamboard link on a browser, that will be very easy for you all. So in a minute, John will actually put us into different breakout rooms, and what will happen is you will randomly be allocated one. And as I said, we actually have got some lead to actually facilitate the conversation as well. So once you get into the breakout room, our lead will actually introduce themselves very quickly, and then you will be able to use the Jamboard link. And the idea of the Jamboard link is actually people can put in their comments anytime at the same time. So all you need to think is our lead will tell you which room you're in. So hopefully you will tap into on the top of the page that will show you which page. So you just have to move to the right page. And then I think probably we will be able to just share with you very quickly how you can use the sticky pad. So if you want to join in the discussions, then you can actually join in the discussion. But if you actually prefer, because obviously we are where it's evening time, if you actually prefer just to type up your comments, then you'll be able to use that as a function as well. So I think that's actually all we are hoping to do. And then once we finish, I can't remember the time that we actually gonna bring people back in, John. But once we bring all the colleagues back in, I think our lead facilitators will actually share a bit of comments and actually to share the feedback with the group. And then I think we will have our panel discussions afterwards, isn't it? So thank you very much, everyone, for coming back as well. And thank you for all our lead to actually come back to actually give us some feedback as well. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go start with my room 1. It will just be a bit easier. As I said, we will all be sharing the Jamboard information later as well. So if you miss anything, do not worry. So I'm just gonna spend a couple of minutes just to talk about in our room, and our topic is actually people first. And the questions that we have got is how could I champion inclusion and belonging for my colleagues and patients by asking what matters to you. It's a bit of a mouthful question actually, but it was actually a very interesting conversations, because I think we started talking a little bit about what matters to our patients, what sort of things that we could do. And I think one of our colleagues, Maggie, actually mentioned that they got some work that they have done. They produced something called What Matters to You spider diagram quite some time ago, when the patients being admitted into the in-service. They actually talk a little bit about asking the patients what do they prefer to be known as or called, and what gives them the pleasure, what matters to them, and that actually seems to have worked very well. So we were just saying that that's something that actually we could we might be able to share. This is a fantastic best practice. And then I think we started talking a little bit about with all the pressures we have got, and especially I think with because traditionally with creative therapists as well, you don't normally have a group of you. You tend to actually work either on yourself as one or just a couple in your team or in your department. So we talk about there should be some isolation as a professional group. And then so we started talking a little bit about what matters to us as a professional group. And then I think we generated quite a bit of conversation about how we can actually brand ourselves, how we can actually promote and market ourselves. Actually, we don't need to wait for someone else to actually give us that permission. We actually go and do it. And I think so we have talked quite a lot about how we connect with other people and how we actually empower our own identity. And I think I hope colleagues actually don't mind me sharing, because I forgot to say I am an occupational therapist by background, but I did do my first master's in psychotherapy, so I absolutely love everything that you guys do. But just to actually say that I think traditionally art, drama and music therapists that I actually work with, and I know you guys tend to be very low key. You are not as loud as some of the other professional groups. I'm not going to say who, but I just want to say that actually sometimes you guys are doing so much fantastic work. It's really about how can we promote ourselves? How can we actually share the impact, not just quantitative, but actually qualitative. So that's actually what we discussed in our room, really. So hopefully that's very helpful. As I said, we'll share the Jamboard. So, and I'm going to move to room 2 now. So I think room 2 is it, Claire H.
Yeah, it is. And you just led really nicely into ours, because ours was, how can I use or develop my research capabilities to optimize the care I and my organization provides? So we were talking about, collecting the data, and we were talking about the fact that actually some of us, we do a lot of collecting data, collecting evaluation measures from our clients, but what do we do with it above thinking and noticing it with our individual clients? And could we add this to a body of research, perhaps? There's something about what are we doing with the data we're collecting, the audits we collect. But we also acknowledge some of the barriers, and some of the barriers are, it's really hard, particularly if you're working in private practice. What do you do about sharing your data and collecting it? Where do you take it? But also for everybody, having the confidence, the opportunity and the time to turn your practice into research is can feel like a struggle. what also came up though was that actually not necessarily knowing where to access funding for research. If you want to take it bit, more and access funding, we had one lady in the group who has applied for a fellowship to develop a really exciting funding project that she wants to do. And we were also then talking about, well, actually, not everybody knew about how you can get funding or support for research for allied health professions. We put a couple of things in the chat. So there's something about raising that within the arts therapies about how to get funding for AHPs. And we also talked about that there's different levels, so it doesn't have to be a big research project. So we were talking about, I gave an example about using service user voices when we won a couple of awards in our trust. That was really from the service user feedback and inviting them to the judging panels. So there's, it doesn't have to be big. So yeah, there's some barriers, but also some ideas of what we need to do to promote that and encourage our confidence in developing that research and sharing our good practice.
Perfect. Thank you, Claire. I think that's actually very, and thank you. You actually stuck with the two and a half minutes, Claire. You've done well. So thank you very much. That was very important. Again, as I said, we'll share all the information, but I think we also probably want to think a little bit about how we can champion and how we can showcase, not just within our own professional group, but also actually to the wider platform as well. So we will think of that. So I think the next room is actually Claire G. Grant. So Claire, if you don't mind, quickly introduce yourself and actually have 2 minutes to talk about the feedback. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm Claire Grant. I'm the Head of Arts Therapies at Central and North West London NHS Foundation Trust. And I also chair a forum, the National Strategic Forum for NHS Arts Therapies Leads and HEI Arts Therapies Leads as well. We were in a room looking at social inequalities, health inequalities. And what was very helpful was we had representatives from the NHS and also those from kind of independent community organisations, third sector. And it was really, really helpful to have both of those perspectives in the room and to think about how together we can jointly offer better services to help address inequalities. We talked about how you ensure diversity within teams, and how to, one of the examples was a team of people with a lot of dual nationality within that, many with second languages and so on, and something about kind of profiling that and really making the most of the kind of diversity within teams. And we were thinking about the kind of potential for partnership working between the NHS and the third sector. And that I think there's a lot around how the NHS really needs to change and improve its access to local communities and to make services much more accessible. And I think that can really happen through these partnerships with local community organisations where arts therapy services, for example, can be much more kind of co-produced, co-developed. And there was an example that we gave of doing that through role emerging placements that are sort of collaboratively developed, supported by the NHS and developed with these external partners and in these organisations. I think we were talking about the difficulties for these for third sectors around funding and funding services, and we talked about the integrated care systems and how this can sort of begin to support things. But we do have to think differently. We've got to disrupt the system, not just sort of put the same ingredients in, and really got to start putting in new ingredients and thinking differently. And really think about how to improve the equity across the different bodies and parties involved. We were also very much thinking about the models that arts therapists have been trained with over the years and how we really do need to start thinking differently about that, but also to be thinking about reframing. And much of what we've learned in our training, it provides foundations for us, and we need to just be thinking as well about how we speak about those aspects of our theory, and provide language that helps those things to be of help, of relevance, and accessible to people. We had various kind of sideline conversations around AHPs versus PPN, and where our identities lie, and a lot of thought around the best of both worlds and how that can really help resource us. I think they were the main things.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Claire. And I think that's something that you actually tap into. Hopefully we'll be able to reflect a bit more, is about how we actually change and challenge our thinking. And that actually we probably has been quite comfortable in our own professional group and actually our training, but it's about changing that. It could be a mindset, it could also be practice as well. So that will be something hopefully we can discuss in the future. So next I have got Louise, and Louise, if you don't mind introducing yourself briefly, and then I'll spend a couple of minutes talking about the feedback from your group, please. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you, Venus. Well, my name's Louise Smart. I work as a professional advisor for the British Association of Art Therapists, and I'm also head art therapist for Oxley's NHS Trust. So our question was around environmental sustainability. How can I embed sustainability into any changes I make in my service, capturing benefits and sharing these through my networks? And this was all within the framework of the goals in the document around the NHS reaching net zero by 2040. So we started off talking about how COVID threw us into a hybrid model of working, where we did have to use video links, we didn't travel, we kind of started working naturally a bit more environmentally, in a more environmentally friendly way, and how that kind of kick-started us into sort of thinking differently, and how uncomfortable that was initially, but how it was a kind of, you know, it was a real journey and a real sort of learning. We thought a bit about apprenticeships and about how with the new sort of models of apprenticeships, some of the learning is online, that some of the emphasis is around working locally, so therefore cutting down travel, so sort of local people and online training. We were thinking about locations, and we talked a bit about where we work, and I think Francesca shared a lovely sort of story about the environmental art therapy that happens in her trust, and how they've actually built an outside art therapy space where different things can happen in that space, sort of connecting people more with the environment, but also, you know, helping people who kind of struggle with being inside buildings and things like that. So that was great, and working with the seasons. And we also talked about sort of found objects projects, where clients can go out and sort of bring objects to the sessions, and sort of look at the stuff that people leave behind. So therefore not using new materials, reusing old materials, bringing those into the session, bringing their own materials in from home. We talked actually about having a bigger workforce, and the reason for this was so that we could have more art, music, drama therapists and colleagues strategically placed. Because Genevieve, who works in the borders in Scotland, you know, travels awfully long distances, and there's something about, you know, having people in different places, having local people, having resources that people can access locally that people don't have to travel for. We thought about adapting the creative model that we have, being very open to that. So we talked about sort of phone sessions, about the sort of creative flexibility and the person-centered sessions, where we use our training, but we kind of rethink it into just sort of developing it around the patient, which also links into other parts of the document, but also by not using, kind of using up materials within that. We kind of all felt that kind of climate change is such an enormous thing to get your head around, and actually net zero by 2040 is something does our heads in, really, doesn't it? I mean, we can't even think about it. It's so there's something about doing things in small steps, but also that it's not just us, it's about the kind of container that holds us. It's about the organization, it's about society, it's about the country, it's about everything. But there's something about sort of doing these small steps to try and do the bit we can to get as far as we can with it. And that's where we got to. It was a very creative discussion. It was really interesting.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you, Louise. As I said right at the beginning, no pressure, that I was actually expecting creativity from colleagues here tonight. But I guess the other thing as well is actually very interesting to hear about this is actually a wider agenda. It's not just actually about just being a great AHP, but I really love the fact that about the bigger workforce and actually how we can move resources within the system. And I'm just wondering, this is something it could be professional bodies might be able to help, because sometimes it's really about knowing who is actually in where. So that's something that we will take forward as well. So thank you very much for that, Louise. I saw the message actually from John. We are actually quite tight with time, so we'll still have a bit of time. But what I would just say is, Susanna, and thank you, Tracy, as well, because Tracy was also in the same breakout room with you. Susanna, if you don't mind introducing yourself very quickly and actually give us some feedback, that'll be great. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, Venus. So I'm Susanna Preedy. I'm Deputy Director of AHP and Education for Southern Health. Again, like Venus, I'm an occupational therapist, not a creative therapist, but really pleased to be here with you all. I'm certainly a really big champion within the Trust for our creative therapies. We had a great discussion around technology and how do we promote the services. We discussed that issue around the youngsters are on very different platforms to some of us of a certain age, and the challenges that might bring, and how do we work with that, but also that need, we often get hung up on consent, and how can we manage that differently with our service users to promote what we do, but also the need around outcome measures as well, and making that technologically based. I'm not sure whether you want to add anything else, Tracy. But it was a really great discussion, and I've summarized it really briefly. Sorry.
Brilliant. Thank you, Susanna. Tracy, would you like to actually just come in very quickly as well, because I think not many people actually have met you. Would you like to introduce yourself very quickly?
Yes, of course. Hello, everybody. I'm relatively new to BAAT. Well, I'm very new to BADth, and I'm the CEO, recently recruited. I'm a psychotherapist, integrative. And yeah, lots of experience of working in different sectors, the NHS, the third sector for many years, private practice, and I'm also a clinical supervisor. So I talk the language. I'm learning new ways to offer what we offer in a more creative way. It's been great. Thank you, Venus.
Brilliant. Thank you, Tracy. And so I think thank you, Susanna, as well, because obviously you guys actually just sum up about what has been discussed in your breakout room 5. So thank you very much. I'm just aware of the time, and I know that obviously we are probably a few members already left, because it's actually getting late. But what we're actually gonna do, if that's okay, is actually we'll try to finish around 8:05, and we're just gonna do the quick panel discussion. So what I actually would propose is if any of you would like to actually raise your hand, or you would like to put some comments in the chat, so we can actually look at it. But the idea for our panel Q&A essentially is that you can actually just post a questions or a comment that you actually think from this evening about the strategy. Or if you got something that you think, hey, actually, what about the regional team? What about the professional bodies, or actually the national team, which obviously I will be able to feed back to our couple team. If there's anything that you think, oh, actually, it will be really amazing if we could do, this is actually like your second time to have a Christmas wish list now, everyone. So do share with us, and actually we will try to answer or share our insights as well.
I'll just start that because Jed has started a really good chat thread in the chat. So Jed, did you want to just unmute yourself and offer your thoughts about the scope for joint art, music and drama therapy research, if you're still around? Maybe he's not. Okay. Oh, it won't let. There, you should. Can you speak now?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Yeah, I know. Somebody was mentioning. I think it was the second group was talking a bit about being more research active, and I think there's lots of people individually pursuing this on their own and feeling a bit lonely and isolated. And occasionally, some of us kind of find each other by mistake, or supervise each other's MSCs or whatever it is. But I wonder whether there's a scope for us to work across the 3 professions, not just in a research frame actually, but because I think that we'd be stronger together more broadly than within a research frame. But certainly a space where arts therapists, particularly interested in visual methods, can come together and kind of talk and support each other and help each other out with funding and stuff. Would be really helpful. I don't quite know who could pull that together, but I don't quite get what I need from my professional body in research terms. I think there's Kappa's pretty good. I think all of us could link up with Kappa. That I found them to be really helpful in terms of nationally and with regional hubs for those of us that want to try and find, where we can get funding for different studies or different progress points on that clinical academic pathway. So I just shoved something in the chat about the pathway for whoever it was that was saying, where do you go for funding, really? That it's the most generously funded pathway for research that exists, really. So I would always start there, but there's lots of other places too. That was all really. I can chunder on about it for hours, so I'll just stop.
Brilliant. Thank you, Jed, and thank you, John, for actually putting Jed. I'm muting Jed as well.
Yeah, thank you, John.
Do you know what, actually, Jed? I think that's you raised a very good point there. I think that's actually a couple of layers, isn't it? The first thing is really about how can you find your peers to actually to get the funding to actually and get the support and resources to actually do the research. But I guess the second part as well is actually how can you, once you start doing the research, and actually after you finish it, where do you actually showcase them as well? And I was actually very lucky recently. I work with the art therapists and actually with some of my colleagues and in the professional body, actually talking to Gary and Alex from the board, and we were just saying that actually, especially art therapists. I thought I was a geek, but I've read so many research papers that they've done recently, but it's only when they told me to say, hey, Venus, this is actually where you can see all our research, that I came to realize. But I just wonder, how can we actually share the works being done to actually, because you want to actually get more people to do it. And just to actually say it very quickly as well, is that I'm aware that we do have AHP research lead post dotting around different regions, and they're not clinical academics. So clinical academics, they are the people who actually do more research. But the research lead post, they actually focus more about how to shift the culture, how to actually encourage people to actually do more, and actually where you can get the support. So and if actually colleagues are interested, I can actually link you up with a couple of them. But I would definitely say, yeah, thank you, Claire, for that link as well. But I would definitely say that if then it's really the professional bodies might be able to help. But I also think it's really about how we, once we've done it, it's not about, hey, it's over now. It's really about showcasing. I don't know whether anyone else in the panel would like to share anything as well.
Can I just sort of echo a kind of key message there, which is about the kind of collaboration across the professional bodies and across the modalities, and just how much more we can do of that. I mean, I applaud this event, bringing everyone together. I know how useful it is from the strategic forum where the NHS Arts Therapy leads come together and the HEI Arts, and it feels very important to have those spaces where we can really get more learning from each other, share more information, get a much bigger picture of what the arts therapies professions are like nationally. And obviously that will be really important with research, but I think generally from a strategic point of view and from getting these sorts of messages out about the AHP strategy, and I think the more we can do that together in a coherent way, the better.
Venus as well. I don't know if I can just come in really quickly. I would say any research you do, no matter how small, even if it's a tiny audit or a small development project, make sure within your trust you really share that. So whether it's your AHP lead that you go to or your service lead or whoever, make sure it's known and shared, because actually all we ever hear as an AHP lead, the main thing I hear are the things that are going wrong. And it's really lovely to hear the things that are going right and be able to say to the board and my colleagues and the nursing leads and all of that, all the great work that is happening. And if you don't share, we don't know. And then we can't promote the services and the amazing job you do with them. I work with Jonathan and he will know full well, he did a piece of work, a video and a music piece. And every exec I sit with, I share that piece of work. Everyone who asks me what do music therapists do, I share that piece of work because it's something there and tangible and to hand, and it makes it so much easier. So just make sure whoever's door you have to knock on the door. It doesn't matter how small it is. It makes such a difference in how we can then promote the work you do.
That's a very good point, Susanna. Thank you. And I think this is actually what we are actually not thinking. Maybe we are, as I said, we are trying to focus on completing the work and then actually stop there. But actually, it's really about sharing with anyone, isn't it? As you said, in your own provider, in your organization, within the region, and actually with your professional bodies, with your peers as well. I think there's something about how we can do that. And I think Laura actually also put down a point there as well. It's really about the research, the terminology. We need to think a little bit about, sometimes, as Susanna just mentioned as well, it might not necessarily be peer review research. It could be a surface evaluation. It could an audit. It could be anything. But actually, anything we do, and actually research. The reason why we do it is because of quality improvement. We want to make a change. We actually want to do something differently. And very often, and I really thank you, Susanna, for sharing that as well, is that it's so nice to actually hear that a Chief AHP is actually showcasing what we're doing, rather than to talk about patient safety, just to talk about the numbers, staffing numbers, because this is what we focus on, but also is really to change that mindset. So thank you. And just to go back to Claire, your point earlier as well, Claire, you mentioned about events like this is actually really an opportunity for us to get together. And just remember as well, at the beginning, when I was doing the Mentimeter, we did say that actually the AHP strategy, not many people actually know about this or actually have read it. Now, while I'm not saying that once you read the strategy, you'll be amazing, you know everything, but I think that we actually launched that in June last year. So what I would probably say is, so how can we, as an individual, how can we ensure that we are in the know, that there's some things that are happening strategically that affect our practice? So where do we find the information? Is it the responsibility from the professional body? Is it responsibility from who? I don't know. That could be something for discussion. But I do think that we need to think a little bit about how we can get all the resources, and then how we can actually showcase. So that's a bit of a both sort of like approach. And I think, John, you did mention something and at the beginning as well, that actually, and I think actually Louise also mentioned it, and we were just saying that, is there actually an opportunity for us to actually regroup? It could be all of us, it could be different people, but actually it's thinking about how in a few months' time we can have this platform again, that we own it. We know that this is a space that we actually can share our work. So John, I mean, we just got a couple of minutes left, and I'm just wondering, being the lead of the event this time, would you like to have all the final word, please?
Wow, that's pressure. I think the fact that I'm feeling like this conversation is only just beginning. I think we've started something here, and it's great to hear that there's the desire for more collaboration, and there's the desire to keep on developing this, keep on seeing how this applies to all art, music, drama therapists, regardless of us working in the NHS, third sector, private. You know, this is a piece of work that applies to all of us, because we're all looking after patients. And it's really good to get the thoughts out there. And just saying in the chat about people wanting to keep this going. So, you know, Louise, Genevieve, Claire, let's us get together as kind of professional body reps and talk about how can we keep this going. But thank you all ever so much for joining us. Just a special thank you to Venus for talking us through tonight. It's been wonderful. I've really got a lot from it, and also to our panel members, you know, Claire Grant, Claire Hubbard, Louise Smart, Susanna Preedy. Thank you all for freeing up your evening. I know the panel's kind of taken a different form to where we expected it, but I think that's the joy of working with creative therapists. But thank you all ever so much. Please keep on going with the Jamboards. Those links will remain live for the next 24 hours or so. So get any thoughts or there, you know, go to it and read what other people have put, and let those thoughts kind of spark you off with a new tangent or thread to add to it. And then we will we'll upload or edit the video, upload it to YouTube, and we'll send it around to the mailing list for today, but also to the professional bodies so that we can send it out to people as well. But thank you all ever so much. Have a great rest of your evening, and we'll be in touch about another event. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.